Number 1. Stranger. About 5 years ago, I lived downtown in a major city in the US. I've always been a night person, so I would often find myself bored after my roommate, who was decidedly not a night person, went to sleep. To pass the time, I used to go for long walks and spend the time thinking. I spent 4 years like that, walking alone at night, and never once had a reason to feel afraid. I always used to joke with my roommate that even the drug dealers in the city were polite. But all of that changed in just a few minutes of one evening. It was a Wednesday, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning, and I was walking near a police-patrolled park, quite a ways from my apartment. It was a quiet night, even for a weeknight, with very little traffic and almost no one on foot. The park, as it was most nights, was completely empty. I turned down a short side street in order to loop back to my apartment when I first noticed him. At the far end of the street, on my side, was a silhouette of a man, dancing. It was a strange dance, similar to a waltz, but he finished each box with an odd forward stride. I guess you could say he was dance walking, headed straight for me. Deciding he was probably drunk, I stepped as close as I could to the road to give him the majority of the sidewalk to pass by me. He was very tall and lanky and wearing an old suit. He danced closer still until I could make out his face. His eyes were open and his head was tilted back slightly. Looking off at the sky, his mouth was formed into a painfully wide cartoon of a smile. Between the eyes and the smile, I decided to cross the street before he danced any closer. I took my eyes off of him to cross the empty street. As I reached the other side, I glanced back, and then stopped dead in my tracks. He had stopped dancing and was standing with one foot in the street, perfectly parallel to me. He was facing me but still looking skyward, smile still wide on his lips. I was completely and utterly unnerved. I started walking again but kept my eyes on the man. He didn't move. Once I had put about half a block between us, I turned away from him for a moment to watch the sidewalk in front of me. The street and sidewalk ahead of me were completely empty. I looked back to where he had been standing to find him gone. For the briefest of moments, I felt relieved, until I noticed him again. He had crossed the street and was now slightly crouched down. I couldn't tell for sure due to the distance and the shadows, but I was certain he was facing me. I had looked away from him for no more than 10 seconds, so it was clear that he had moved fast. I was so shocked that I stood there for some time, staring at him, and then he started moving towards me. He took a giant, exaggerated tiptoed steps as if he was a cartoon character sneaking up on someone, except he was moving very, very quickly. I'd like to say at this point I ran away or pulled out my pepper spray or my cell phone, but I didn't. I just stood there, completely frozen, as the smiling man crept toward me. And then he stopped again, about a car length away from me, still smiling, still looking to the sky. When I finally found my voice, I blurted out the first thing that came to mind. "What the hell do you want?" in an angry, commanding tone. Regardless of whether or not human can smell fear, they can certainly hear it. I heard it in my own voice, and that only made me more afraid. But he didn't react at all. He just stood there, smiling. After what felt like forever, he turned around, very slowly, and started dance walking away. Not wanting to turn my back to him again, I just watched him go, until he was far enough away to almost be out of my sight. And then I realized something. He wasn't moving away anymore, nor was he dancing. I watched in horror as the distant shape of him grew larger and larger. He was coming back my way. This time he was running. So I ran too. I ran until I was off the side of the road and back onto a better lit road with sparse traffic. Looking behind me then, he was nowhere to be found. The rest of the way home, I kept glancing over my shoulder, always expecting to see his stupid smile again. Luckily, that was the last time I saw the smiling man. Number 2. The eyes. A couple of years ago, I was living with my then girlfriend. We'd been watching TV, but I felt sleepy, so I decided to go to the bedroom for a nap. I started to drift off when I became aware of a pair of eyes watching me from between a crack in the bedroom door. I couldn't make out anything else, just the eyes. The hallway beyond was pretty dark, so I sleepily assumed it was my partner standing in the shadows and messing with me. I laughed, mumbled a half-hearted piss off, and turned over to sleep. Except I could still feel the eyes on me, and now I was getting annoyed. Without turning back, I gave a louder warning that I wasn't in the mood for joking around and I'd like to be left alone. After a few seconds, I heard the door creak open a little more. Still half asleep, I turned back and delivered a barrage of swears at the door. It was about half open, now filled with the blackness of the hallway beyond. Right at normal height where the eyes began was a big toothy grin. Not a friendly one either. The grin was fixed like a skeleton's and the eyes were unblinking and creepy. Assuming it was just my partner, I drifted off. When I woke back up not long later, the door was still open and the eyes and smile were still there. I was about to launch into an epic, sweary rant when I heard my partner sneeze through the wall connecting the bedroom to the living room. It wasn't my partner who stood in the doorway. I freaked the hell out and rolled myself off the side of the bed and onto the floor. By the time I managed to pull myself up to look over the edge of the bed, the door was still half open, but there was nothing else there. My partner wandered in looking confused and asked what the hell I was doing making so much noise. I explained at about 100 miles per hour and eventually managed to calm down. We checked the whole flat from top to bottom, but found nothing. I barely slept the entire night. Mostly I sat in the darkness watching the door to make sure it wouldn't open. I was later told by a friend that it was probably just a hallucination caused by hypnagogia when the body is transitioning between sleep states. But a week or so ago, I got chatting to one of my neighbors in the lobby of my apartment block. He happened to mention that he recently caught our mutual landlord letting herself into his flat one afternoon, claiming she was just doing a random spot check. I'm now less convinced that it was ever caused by hypnagogia. Thanks guys, please share, comment, and subscribe for more videos. And remember, never forget to lock your doors.